Deion Sanders' most painful battle, how Coach Prime faced cancer, wrote his will, and fought his way back to the Colorado sideline. A season that almost didn't happen. When Deion Sanders, famously known as Coach Prime, stepped onto the Colorado Buffaloes sideline this season, fans saw the same charismatic figure who had turned Boulder into one of college football's most talked about destinations. But what they didn't see was the private war Sanders had waged in the months leading up to that moment. A war so intense that it forced him to confront his mortality, draft his will, and make life or death decisions that would shape the rest of his future. This wasn't just another off-season for Coach Prime. It was a fight for survival. The disappearance that sparked worry. When Sanders suddenly vanished from public view earlier this year, speculation swirled. Fans, media, and critics all asked the same questions. Where was Coach Prime? Was he stepping away from the program? Was it something medical? Or was it something worse? Colorado's football program went quiet, fueling fears that something truly dire was happening. By July, the truth emerged, and it was far more serious than many had imagined. Sanders had been diagnosed with bladder cancer, not just a minor health scare, but a disease that can be aggressive and life-threatening if not treated immediately. For the Hall of Famer who built his entire persona on strength, speed, and resilience, the diagnosis was a brutal wake-up call. The will that changed everything. Before heading into surgery, Sanders sat down to do something no man ever wants to do: write his will. That moment alone was enough to shake him. It wasn't just about money or legacy. It was about coming face to face with the possibility that he might not make it. The thought of leaving his children, his players, and the Colorado community behind weighed on him. But in true Prime fashion, he made a decision. If this was the battle of his life, he was going to fight it head-on. The surgery that saved his life. Sanders underwent a radical cystectomy, the complete removal of his bladder, in order to stop the cancer from spreading. Surgeons then created a new bladder from part of his small intestine, an extraordinary procedure that offered him a chance at life but came with a long, painful recovery. The procedure saved his life, but it didn't spare him from agony. The most excruciating pain of his life. In an emotional interview with former teammate Michael Strahan on Good Morning America, Sanders revealed just how difficult those early days of recovery were. "I remember just on the ground in the bathroom, and I'm just screaming because it was so much pain," Sanders confessed. For a man who had played through broken bones, turf toe, and countless injuries during his NFL and MLB careers, to call this the most excruciating pain of his life speaks volumes. Even NFL legend Michael Irvin, who visited Sanders during his recovery in Texas, was moved to tears by what he saw. The ever-confident Coach Prime, the man who always carried himself with swagger, was in a fragile state. Living with a new reality, the surgery not only removed the cancer but also changed Sanders' daily life in ways that few can truly understand. He now faces incontinence issues, something he openly addressed in his conversation with Strahan. "Some nights I go through 2 pairs of depends a night. Like, some nights are bad," Sanders admitted. It's an honest, vulnerable confession that showed a side of Deion Sanders that fans rarely see. The man who was once one of the most dominant athletes in the world now has to manage something as basic as bladder control. And yet, he refuses to let it hold him back. The choice between chemotherapy and coaching. Doctors presented Sanders with 2 paths: a long course of chemotherapy that would keep him away from Colorado for months, or an aggressive surgery that would give him a chance to return sooner but would demand a brutal recovery process. For Sanders, the decision was clear. "I ain't waiting. I ain't sitting back on the curb waiting to go slowly but surely do whatever's gonna happen," Sanders said. He chose surgery. He chose the hard road. He chose to endure pain now so that he could be back with his team on the field, doing what he loves. Faith as his foundation. Throughout this journey, Sanders leaned heavily on his faith. "The Bible clearly depicts that in this world we're going to have tribulation," he told Strahan. "I choose to rise up, man, not to stay down." That faith became his anchor through the nights of pain, the long days of physical recovery, and the emotional toll of wondering whether he would ever be the same. a sideline built for a fighter. When Sanders finally returned to the Colorado sideline, it wasn't business as usual. His presence was different. Not just because he had lost weight or walked with a little more care, but because the sideline now literally had a portable toilet built just for him, sponsored by Depends. It's a detail that might seem humorous at first glance, but it underscores just how determined Sanders was to be back where he belonged. Instead of hiding his struggles, he embraced them and found a way to keep coaching despite them. The emotional toll on the program. Sanders' absence and subsequent return also had a profound effect on the Colorado Buffaloes as a program. The team had already faced challenges with roster turnover and the departure of several star players. Losing their head coach for months could have been devastating. Instead, Sanders' battle with cancer became a rallying point. His players watched their coach fight through real adversity, not just in a metaphorical sense, but in a life-and-death struggle. It gave his message of resilience, accountability, and discipline a new weight. Colorado's rocky start and newfound resilience. The Buffaloes stumbled out of the gate this season, dropping early games and struggling to find rhythm. But after 4 weeks, they sit at 2-2, right in the thick of things. More importantly, they are a team that reflects the attitude of their head coach. They fight, they claw, they refuse to quit. Every yard they gain, every first down they convert, every touchdown they score feels like a metaphor for their coach's comeback. Hard-fought, earned, and meaningful. The man beyond the swagger. For decades, Deion Sanders has been one of sports' most electrifying personalities. From his Hall of Fame NFL career to his baseball days to his rise as one of college football's most compelling coaches, he has built a persona based on confidence and flair. But this battle stripped away the flash and left only the man. A father, a mentor, a believer, and a fighter who simply wanted to keep living and keep leading. And in doing so, Sanders may have written the most inspiring chapter of his life. A celebration of survival. No matter how the Buffalo's season ends, no matter how many games they win or lose, Sanders has already secured the most important victory of all. The chance to be here, to keep coaching, to keep inspiring. When fans see him on the sideline now, they see more than a coach. They see a man who faced cancer, faced pain that brought him to his knees, and chose to get back up anyway. The legacy being written. Deion Sanders' legacy will always include his Hall of Fame playing career. But years from now, when people talk about Coach Prime, they won't just talk about his interceptions, his touchdowns, or even his recruiting classes. They'll talk about the man who fought cancer, who kept his faith, who went through the most excruciating pain of his life, and still found his way back to the game he loves.